Hello, welcome, wonderful familians of all, and I say RDC families, heck versus hell, hellions, whatever he wants to say that the name is right now. But right
No,
now
Suburban.
we're yeah, for real. Truth Seekers Mastermind Alliance. That's where we're at right now. This is Lex, of course, and the wonderful, spicy person that you heard right there was Heck himself. And I wanted to give this
That's me.
intro because we're piggybacking off of the conversation. Well, picking up from the conversation we just left previously, which you can see that title right over there. And I'm going off of here and probably going to hydrate in between, but Heck is going to lead us into this conversation after he says hello to all you who are new and who are tuning in, because I don't want to treat everyone like they've been on here, because a lot of you, from the statistics wise, I know a lot of you are coming in daily and weekly that have never been on here before. So welcome, and
Hmm.
thank you to those who have been along with us on this journey. We see it across the board. Either there's one of you or a million. Like, we believe in this platform's understanding and built foundation. One equals 1 million, because when you affect one person, the ripple effect goes out and equals 1 million. And that is definitely facts right there. So we will get this going. Heck, lead us into our conversation and deliver us from Okay, I'm just fine. Okay, go ahead.
That's right. Welcome to all you new listeners, and welcome back, you triple OG, double OGs, for every type of syndication that we have. There's some people listening to this that have been listening way back since like what 2015. Mm,
Really?
OG, real OG listeners.
Funny.
So welcome and welcome back. But as yes, Lex was mentioning, this is going to be a continuation, as you could very clearly tell from the title. This is going to be called The Living Waters Revelations. And it's very intentional that we do that too, because I actually shared a video with Lex too, and we had a little bit of a conversation about this. But there's been a couple people that we know are pretty well versed in the Bible, pretty well versed in different areas, and they had a, I want to say, a surface level revelation,
Mm.
because one of the things that they saw and they were starting to talk about was basically how evil dwells in water, right? And from our previous conversation, we were not talking about that at all. We were kind of on the opposite keel about
Mm.
how basically water is pretty much like the spiritual blood of God in a sense.
Hmm.
And it's the purity and the brilliance of even how it was created in so many different levels that we actually begin to see what it really is. And one of the things that they reference, which is, a huge portion of where the title even came from, in the book of Revelations, it talks about how the beast, I think, what is it? The beast with seven heads and seven horns and, different things like that. It emerges from the water, and so many of these things emerge from the water, and even the Leviathan, right? They talk about the Leviathan in the book of Job. I believe they've also talked about it in Proverbs. And I mean, we even can go back, if you want to go more recent. NASA was actually a is it an agency? I guess an organization that started out doing water research, aquatic research, and they were exploring the oceans. They were going, seeing different, bacteria, different forms of life, sharks, species, fish, whatever it was. And they ended up going to a point where it just scared the bejeebus out of them, right? It scared the Beelzebub out of them. I was starting to say
Well, I
that.
don't know if we could do that, because it might give the empowerment to the other side to think that they can start having power behind that name. But it is kind of cool. It is kind of cool, because some people are like, I don't fear Beelzebub.
Hey, it scared the Beelzebub out of them to the point where they became holy and started worshiping the
Well,
right God.
The
Amen.
Beetlejuice or Beelzebub sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah. But they got to the point where they were like, okay, you know what? We're not doing that anymore. Let's go up. Let's turn it into an outer space type of organization. And, even now you can go and look up different videos, and it looks like so much of their content isn't even real. I haven't looked deep enough into it to put and stand on one side of the wall for that. However, it just goes to show that there is so much. And what is it like? We've only uncovered like 5% of the ocean's depth of what is really in the ocean. So there's a lot of unknown species. Even recently, what is in the last like 20 years, there's been a lot of really creepy looking species coming out of the water. And I actually believe it's also a merciful thing in a sense
Well, they
because
could say it's coming out the water, but do we know they're just creating them to finally come out the water?
mm,
Saying.
that's true. That's very true. Yeah, I was gonna say that too, actually, because it almost seems like a merciful thing as well that was done unto that. Because as we very well know, in the flood of Noah, so many of the well, let's go a little bit further. Maybe like 3 generations back to Enoch. And Enoch was talking about how there was different types of angels that came down and they were doing all different types of things, but one of the things that they were doing was going directly against the revelations, right, the commandments that were given to Adam and Eve, which was going and mixing different types of animals. And so during that process, that's how there was unclean animals that came to be, different types of animals like that. And one of the things that the fallen angels did too, besides going and teaching mankind different types of things, whether it be astrology, the power of roots and crystals and makeup, and how to use steel and mold iron into what it is, metals, different types of metals. One of the things that they did do was go on to taking the daughters of man, and they took them onto themselves. Basically, they go and impregnated them, and out came the Nephilim. But one of the things that was actually a punishment during those times was the wives of those fallen angels, right? Besides the whole Nephilim, just about every single one of them being wiped out. Besides that, the wives of the fallen angels were actually turned into sirens. Now, we do need to look at that a little bit deeper and understand what type of sirens, but essentially they became half man, well, woman, half woman, half animal. And it just even goes further back to point at different things like Greek mythology, and how they got their own beliefs and different types of half things, sirens, which are mermaids, centaurs, minotaurs, all these different types of stuff, which was also what the fallen angels were doing, was mixing those types of things. One of the commands was do not mix them out of their kind, right? So you got to mix a lion with a lion, they got to breed together, trees with trees,
Isn't it
etc.
a liger? Liger?
Yeah, even ligers, even the point
Or
where they
those
got
trees
ligers.
now, that guy has a four seasons tree that blooms all
Yeah,
year round, one side orange, one side peaches. I think that was pretty bad. I don't know. Okay.
really.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I haven't even seen that. But
Yeah.
that's one of the points of conversations that we got to look at too. Is sirens. What type of sirens they are. It could just very well be mermaids. But the point of it is there is so much that was happening in those days, and a lot of it was kind of flushed out. But we have no idea how deep that goes, because fast forward a little bit, we get to the book of Job, and we start talking about different types of things, Behemoth and the Leviathan. Behemoth could have very well been dragons, right? And Leviathan, well, that some underwater creature. We have no idea what it is. Um, but it just goes to show it was scary enough down there, to the point where they were like, you know what? Nope, let's just go up, up and out. Let's leave this world, because there are things that we just do not want to see in this world. So, what the conclusion that some of these people have came from was that water is evil, and evil things emerge from the water. Now, if you really start to look at it and relating it back to the conversation that we previously had, you can really begin to analyze and see that it's more so of a connection in which provides life unto these different types of creatures. Because just like it says, the beast emerges from the water, and there's even different types of urban legends where it talks about different spirits or entities emerge from water, and you can only see them that way. Get away from water, things like that. Um, it just goes to show about.
Urban legends. Ooh.
Mhm.
Sound
It,
effect, girl. Sound effect.
thank you. It just goes to show, they try to portray the water as evil, just as we were talking about the darkness, right? Different things were created in the darkness. There was darkness before there was light. So in the same way, water isn't what's evil. Water is more of a connection to life, because God clearly states it, that everything that is not a part of God is death. And even whenever we start going into the pointing of what was it, the whenever Christ went and he crossed the sea into Capernaum, and there was two possessed men where they were going, and it was a whole little story about how basically they approached Christ and they saw who it was and they kneeled down to him. They were like, "Are you here to torment us at this point in time?" They were saying, that's whenever that whole thing of "We are Legion" or "I am Legion" came out. That's whenever he went, sent them into the pigs. But one of the key points is, did you come to torment us before our time? So, of course, we very well know that these spirits have to, in a sense, dwell in this earth because they don't have a place in heaven, right? That's one thing that was said about the Nephilim, is they don't have a place in heaven because they were created in this earth. We, as spiritual beings, were not created in this earth. So, a means for them to live and continue living is the connection through a piece of God. And the way and mannerism and what it looks like is that they are doing is whether they are residing within us because we are reflections of God, or they are residing in water because through that water it is the blood of God. So it's a means to stay alive. So how deep is that? And it's a completely different keel and different perspective of perceiving it whenever you're looking at it's not evil. It's quite the opposite. Water is amazing. There's so many different factors of what we can look at it as. It is quite literally the blood of God. It's what keeps us alive, and it's also a forms of somewhat keeping them alive. And it's no different than, I guess the analogy that I'm thinking in my head right now is if you're going and eating, right? You're just a family, a household that's eating, and the once you're done eating, you may have dropped a couple crumbs on the floor and the rats come out and they hold on to the water. And that's a sense of what these spirits, what these entities are doing, because they're going and trying to hold on to that little piece of life just enough to survive. And that is a whole different look and avenue and aspect of how we can really look at what water is and how these things are not evil. How, I mean, think about it, the prominence of baptism in the water, of life being formed in a womb of water. It's so deep that you wonder, how could it be evil? But it just furthermore goes to show and reinforce the fact that water is life. That's why it's called the living waters, right? So, I mean, I would love to hear, what you got to say about that too, because I just kind of bombarded. I'm sorry about that. I bombarded and took over a little bit, but it's a conversation that's been really deep on my mind for a while now, actually. So I'm kind of glad that we're finally getting around to it.
It's
But yeah,
deep on my mind as well, and that's why I'm able to send you links in between.
oh
I'm
yeah,
one of those multitaskers that, like, how you're like, oh, a female can do a lot more multitasking. That's why we can take care of 6, 7 kids, make dinner, do this, do that, and where a man can kind of get there, but he was not designed that way. Um, for like the
Yeah,
octopus,
that's true.
octopus with the multiple arms. But a lot of things, had to be done, especially with our blessings that God has given. I will say, as far as the rest goes, I mean, I think I'm gonna say, I'm gonna pull a heck for everybody. I think you
Yes.
covered it all. I think you did it all there. Like,
No, yeah, I mean
I
that's
think it's
kind of how I
wonderful.
look at it though.
I
Like,
mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's like you cover, yeah.
I
Like,
mean, you're a lot more versed in and acquainted with different types of tribes and things like that too. I mean, is there different ways that they go and try to use water as a means to perform a ritual? Because I know a lot of them they use fire, right? And different things like that. You know, some people even go and use hair, human hair. You know, some
oh,
people
absolutely.
go and take.
You have to have a part of the essence of what you're doing, just like the skin and all those. And I mean, obviously the whole, I don't want to say the dark side, but the other side of things is always trying to be a reflection that's opposite of. Satanists, different ones will read things backwards or do things completely mocking it thereof to do some kind of try to desecrate that of God. But yeah, I mean hair, water. Water is a lot more is I'll put it this way, for the occult, right? Or the people who like
Mhm.
to do the dark arts, they like to use water as far as the brewing mixture that comes along with the blood. Theirs would be mostly the blood sacrificing itself, different stuff. Now, obviously, there's depths to this, layers to this, but theirs is
That
about
makes
adding
sense.
and doing and taking. It's about minimalizing life in order to give life to this something else that does not deserve the life that it has. And it's a temporary life at that because it's a temporary thing. You constantly have to keep sacrificing in order to keep it. That's the thing about it. You think it's a one-time sell your soul for rock and roll or this and that. You constantly have to keep paying the counterfeit off, baby, because it's not real. Now, even though it might come off as real, it's counterfeit. So, in order to keep it looking real from the counterfeit, you got to pay off the person that's creating the counterfeit because they can never produce the real. Okay, the real is that the
Mm.
source of life. Now, the
Mm.
baptism was at, it was Lex bars,
That's true.
the
Yeah,
Lex
and then
bars.
whenever you think about that
Woo-hoo.
too, I mean, I actually, as I was asking you the question, and you were going into it too about how they really don't use water, and like you said, they do the opposite, right? So they use fire as opposed
But
to
fire
water.
is also used for a cleansing.
Oh
And then
yeah.
also, and God
Hmm.
has there's a lot of fire that was seen in biblical terms, but when people see fire, they have fear. And the sacrifice, the fire representation is more so the aroma of. Now, when people do sacrifices,
Hmm.
now remember, the aroma smelled sweet. There is a certain you can call on, and I'm not going to put this for people's seeds in the head, but you can call out a spirit, not from just burning a fire and saying, "Come see me," but there is something to do with the darkness of the night and the fire. I will tell you that. If you ever wanted to see something come before you, that is the time where it will knock on your door. Now, it's because of what you have to sacrifice it, and what do you plan on saying once it happens? Now, obviously, that's a whole nother level for a whole nother treble, and you don't want to
Hmm.
play around with the dirty little devils. I'm just gonna say, be careful what you try to conjure up. And ultimately, it comes down to the fire being able to purification, but it's the essence of it. Now, I can't remember the names. Maybe you can pop in this when it comes, but they were having, basically one of the prophets were kind of mocking one of the men who were trying to do the signs and wonders. And he was like, "What's the matter? Your God's taking a vacation, basically? Like he's not going to come, not show up? Like no matter what
Oh yeah,
yeah, they sacrifice."
man, I can't remember. That was one of the
Yeah, that's what I'm
prophets.
like. My mind's on like, oh, like I have too much
Might have
down
been
in my brain.
Elijah or Ezekiel.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
Hmm.
like my mind it can't click on there, but I feel it.
Yeah, I
I
think it
feel
was
it.
Elijah.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, my name's people. I'm sorry, but I go through hundreds and no thousands of different words every day. So much stuff put in my brains. It's amazing. I'm still trying to correlate what God's been giving me through vision. So my life is very exhaustive. And I have a semi coach with Heck. Sometimes he slags off a little
I'll
bit,
read
but
it to
he
you right
gets
now.
there.
I
He
read it
gets
to you right now. It was Elijah.
Yeah, well, there you go.
So,
Like,
so it was I'm just taking this little piece of it right now, but it's First Kings 18:25 through verse 27. And it says, Then Elijah said to the prophets of Baal or Baal, Choose for yourselves one bull and prepare it first, for you are many, and call upon the name of your God, but put no fire to it. And they took the bull that was given them, and they prepared it and called upon the name of Baal from morning until noon, saying, O Baal, answer us. But there was no voice, and no one answered. And they limped around the altar that they made. And at noon Elijah mocked them, saying, Cry aloud, for he is a god. Either he is musing, or he is relieving himself, or
Ah.
he is on a journey, or perhaps he is asleep and must be awakened. So he was just going, just really mocking them. But yeah, no, I mean
So
that's
I mean, what is it? What else does it read?
I gotta find the whole passage really quick. Let
Mm.
me pull it up. But
Oh, there you go. What book was that again?
is First Kings chapter
Okay.
18.
Okay. Chapter 18.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, there you
There's
go. Thanks, Hexy. I knew he'd come in. He'd come in.
mhm.
But yeah, that's pretty much what it is. I mean, the fire represents so many things, and it depends who you're trying to call upon. Now, obviously, the world has become 10,000 times more wicked than we can only imagine. That's why so many cats go missing every Halloween. So many children go missing every day. And people just think, oh, they got lost, this and that. Why aren't there any bones? Why are there any nothing being seen, just wiped off the face of the earth? And there's a lot of other forces working along with that. And I really don't believe it is other planetary beings. I believe those beings are shadowed and looked over by, the principalities of this world to make it
100%.
seem like they're coming from another state. Because God wouldn't allow
100%.
something be manipulated from a whole nother galaxy. Why would that be even so? For other people, other quote deities could just come here and start messing with God's creation and just doing all kinds of research and this. No, it's to create the illusion that there's so many things going on. And hey, whatever it is, I'm not saying that it's not manifestly real through those basically things. It is
That's
happening.
and that's the thing too, is about what God talks about also, is how it says in I believe it's in Proverbs, whenever it talks about how people will call themselves wise, but they will be stumped by foolish questions, something like that, right? Something along those lines. And I was thinking, I actually saw a little video of what's his name, Neil Tyson deGrasse or whatever his name is, and he said something. He's like, "Well, I mean, think about it. Why would aliens come and visit us? What is so special about us? They're gonna look at us and say, well, and basically saying like, well, we have nothing to offer to them, a higher and intelligent being." And really simply, you could just ask them back, why do we study animals? Why do we study their psychology and physiology and all this stuff? It's a point of deflecting the whole understanding of trying to acknowledge God, and trying to acknowledge what it really is, of how a lot of these things are so falsified, and they're so stuck in those logical type of explanations, to where they're not trying to think outside the box. Really, they're trying to use the box to create other portions and other mini boxes inside of the box, to be able to open it and say, huzzah, more box. So it's like there's really no understanding or real logical grasp into it. Obviously they're going science based, and that's cool. That's a really good proof of God's existence. But whenever you try to use your own logic compared to God's knowledge and infinite being of creation, it's no comparison. Because even though we gained so much vast knowledge, whenever the angels did come down and teach us different things, from the what roots can do, from different portions of molding metals, and even when Christ came down and was teaching us different elements of how to control and the biology of what we were created to do, we catch up to it later with science. So science is so far behind. But even with all this knowledge, even if it's not direct and it's not fully explained, it is still never in comparison to the infiniteness of God. And that, I feel like, is a great place to leave it at. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Well,
Mhm.
I will catch everyone on the flip side. Thank you for tuning in with us on this wonderful journey of Truth Seekers Mastermind Alliance and being with us all here, Sound and Mind. And hopefully, I'll be able to elaborate some more with you on these conversations and topics that we're going into so deep. So, blessings, peace, amazing love. Tap into
Oh
the
yeah.
enlightenment of God. And
Hmm.
yeah,
Still stay tuned for the "We Are Not Alone" one, because this is more of a, I guess, a parallel to it, so it doesn't completely intertwine with it. But we love you all. Hope you have a blessed day, evening, month, week, year, and we will catch you
flip side.